No, Lucifer and Satan, the demons, help people to succeed in their way, provided they do their will, provided they do their manifest will. They give them power over people.
All right, let's take a call. We've got Blaine calling in from our affiliate in Salt Lake City, KCNR. Good evening, Blaine. Blaine, are you there? Blaine? Hello, Blaine.
Hello?
Yeah, Blaine. Can you hear me, Blaine?
I can't hear you, Michael, but I'll assume I'm on the air.
You are on the air, so go ahead. What's your question for my guest?
I can hear you, Blaine.
I had a question about last week about his theories of cultural causation. On the one hand, he correctly pointed out how the New World Order uses techno-economics to dominate the nature of our culture.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, you take sort of a neo-Marxist twist, and you're pointing out how Catholic ideology can have an effect on our culture. My comment on this week's episode, I was wondering what you thought about the relationship to the ancient shamanistic exorcism of spirits as it compares to the modern.
Well, from what we know about shamanism and the activities of shamans that now exist, because we can only treat with shamans that exist and not with what people say about them, but the shamans that do exist mainly are relying on natural means to befuddle their adherents. But there are amongst the shamans genuine people dedicated to Satanist ritual. And in that case, we have possession.
Okay, and I was wondering if you'd comment on the cultural causation, materialism versus idealism.
Well, there's no doubt about it that where materialism reigns and where idealism or the life of the spirit is crushed, there's no doubt about it that Satanism and Satanist rituals flourish. It's a known fact. Simply, as night follows day, or as night follows day is the best image. Whenever there's a loss of spirit, a loss of religion, a loss of morals and ethics, there always is an accompanying Satanist reaction. Always.
Is that cleared up, Blaine?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, well, thank you for calling. Okay, Malachi, we got 1 minute before we go to a break, but
sure.
What this site kind of dovetails into our discussion last week.
Yes.
The influence of satanic practices, I suppose.
Yes.
With certain factions of political, crossing over political lines.
Sure.
What do you think about and save this answer for after we come back from the break, but what do you think about the connection between so-called maybe New Age thoughts and practices that we see so much of today, and some of this? And
that's a very important question, Michael.
Okay. When we went to break, we were talking about the New Age movement, how does all this stuff crosses over?
Well, in very simple language, Michael, in very simple language, and it requires a lot of explanation after that, here's the way it works. In this world of man, this cosmos, there are just two main forces, God and evil, personified in Satan and Lucifer. And finally, since everything is being globalized today, evil itself is globalized. And what before was practiced by small communities and small sections of communities, small little groups, covens, as we used to call them, is now becoming the way of life and the way of thought of whole populations, according as their morals and ethics are completely degraded and reduced to materialistic terms and hedonistic aims and totally this world view of things. And that is the reign of evil, and it is directly in contravention to the reign willed by God, who is the sovereign creator and master of all things. So that's the situation today. The evil is, no doubt about it, more organized, more globalized, And it comes out in the New Age, which is the deification of man and the creation of man's habitat as the only aim worth having, whereas this is not God's aim in this life for human beings.
And of course, as you've mentioned in the Keys of This Blood, the aim of, say, Marxism is a dialectic materialism.
Sure, and it was a chapter. It's now a past chapter in the history of man. Marxism as such is a closed chapter. It was closed in 1989, 1990 with the collapse of the USSR. And we've passed into another phase. Leninism is still alive. There's no doubt about that. And it's a threat. And it's going to be one of the causes of headaches for American planners in the next 10 or 20 years, if we have 10 or 20 years to go in this matter of geopolitical spiraling, because now we're approaching the point of clash between Russia, China, and the United States. Nobody else counts except those three. Neither Islam nor Catholicism nor Judaism counts. It's just those three powers. And Leninism is still there. But what is still strong is that which animated Leninism and Marxism, namely total materialism, the totally materialistic interpretation of human life.
I'm kind of curious. The one thing that I see, as you know, this program deals with the paranormal and UFOs and that type of thing.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious how you would maybe assess the situation as far as the interest in, just like I said here, the July 8th copy of Newsweek, the front cover,
yes,
that Americans are really hooked on the paranormal. What is the catalyst, or what is the dynamic here?
But the dynamic is this, Michael, and we have to be terribly honest with ourselves in this matter. I don't care who they are, who he is or she is, but everyone today, if they really sit down, let their hair down, and peel grapes on this subject, we all know that deep in our bellies we sense we're in transition. Something is changing vastly in our human scene. We don't know what it is exactly.
Well, I think that's very true, too.
Something is changing. Life is no longer a continuum. We don't know the past very well. We are afraid of the future, and the present is confusing. And we're in change. We know that. And we don't know what's going to happen. And we are afraid. And then overshadowing that are the various myths that we've had in the past, as well as a few more that are just belonging to the future and are going to frighten us and cause us a lot of nightmares. But I think that's the dynamic is this. It's this uncertainty. It's not merely economic uncertainty, it's political uncertainty. It's the uncertainty of morals, the uncertainty about marriage, the uncertainty about heterosexuality and homosexuality, the uncertainty about disease. There's a great uncertainty. With all our science, with all the perfection of our methods, we are now more uncertain about basic things than we ever were before.
Is that why you see maybe perhaps a movement toward us, because the institutions that we see today have essentially failed in some way? They
have failed. They are bankrupt. There's no doubt about they're bankrupt. And I'm a Roman Catholic priest. I'm a very faithful one. In fact, I'm a fuddy-duddy Catholic priest, really. But I know that the organization of the church, the organization, not the church itself, but the organization itself is a Potemkin village. It's a facade. It's dead.
What
As an organization, it's dead.
Uh-huh.
And if I can say that about the Protestant churches, every one of them. I can say that about Mormonism. It's dead too. It's merely an organization turning over. And Islam is a different thing completely, and Judaism is a different thing completely. And they haven't got a ghost of a chance of running the world of this civilization.
What's that leave? I mean,
well, that leaves us high and dry, facing an uncertain ocean lapping on the shores of our land, and gives us this horrible feeling that no matter what we do, we're just on a treadmill, and that things are changing so quickly and so vastly that we are uncertain about the future, about our own selves, about our bodies, and about our minds, and about our souls, and about our children, about our families. about our economics, about our money, about everything. We have great doubts, unless we drown our sorrows in drink or wine and women and song, or with foolish ideas of making $1 million every day, which will, for a while, satisfy. And
there's something deeper.
And then suddenly, well, you find that when you've bought all you want to buy, you find suddenly that you want to buy something else. And that can come with money, but then it's usually Satanist. It's some Satanist satisfaction in your soul, some tin god.
Okay, let's take a call.
Okay.
Jim is calling in from our affiliate KIDO in Caldwell, Idaho. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, gentlemen.
What's your question for my guest?
Well, I'd kind of like to know what you think of the Salem witch hunts, and if there's any correlation in that and the evil you've been talking about. Is that the ultimate exorcism?
Well, from what we know of the Salem witch hunt and the Salem trials, there was a lot of injustice committed there. It wasn't done with any ecclesiastical regularity at all, or with any theological perception.
Was that something that was maybe based in fear?
It was based on fear to a large extent and ignorance. Now, there may have been Satanist activity amongst those women. There may have been. We don't know. It's very hard to know.
Okay, well, hold that thought. When we come back, we'll go into the this thing that we talked about earlier. We didn't talk about it on the air, but we talked about it off air.
Yes.
About this perhaps a prediction, something that might be coming in the next few months. Okay, returning is Malachi Martin. I'm sorry, I keep pronouncing that incorrectly.
No, Adam Michael, what's in the name?
Really, it's the information that's important.
Right.
Yeah, we have a caller calling in from our affiliate in Lakewood, Colorado on KHOW2. His name is Brad. Good evening, Brad. Brad? Hello? Brad, you're on the air. What's your question for my guest?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Fine.
Brad?
Yes.
Turn your radio down. You'll need to turn that down.
Okay, I've got it down.
Okay, go ahead.
I've got a two-part question.
Okay, Brad, go ahead.
The first one would be, for my own edification, a definition of the difference between Satan and Lucifer.
Okay.
And the second part of it would be the origin of evil, i.e., has it existed as long as, say, God and the spirits of light are good, or was that something that was a manifest from the original creation and God's creation?
Yes. Well, the difference between Satan and Lucifer is this, that Satan is always represented as a snake. Lucifer is a scorpion. They have two different functions. Spirits which have no bodies, and Lucifer and Satan haven't got bodies, are only distinguishable by their functions. And Satan's main function is to kill, to liquidate. Lucifer's main aim is to deceive. He's the liar.
So they're two separate entities.
Two separate entities, yes. The beginning of it all started off when there was a revolt by angels. 1/3 of the angels created by God revolted and said, "We will not serve," led by Lucifer and Satan. That was the beginning of it. Then when man was created, they started taking part in man's universe and trying to seduce him away from God, as it is in the Bible. That's the origin of evil.
And, of course, it still goes on.
It goes on every day. They were created for this cosmos, and they intend to keep acting in it until the final day when this cosmos will be wiped out, and they will have to descend and live in hell forever.
Now, last week we discussed the supernatural events surrounding the present Pope John Paul II. Yes. I understand that there is something that is supposed to happen possibly soon. Can you elaborate for us?
Yes, there is. There's no doubt about it that if I were disposed to sort of prophesy in the loose sense of the word, Michael, I would say, I'd keep your eyes on the skies